This is coffee number 5. I'm your host, Lara Schmoisman. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to coffee number 5. And new year, new products, new adventures. And today I brought a good friend of mine. I'm so excited because we're really going to be able to talk about brand identity. So help me to welcome Rachel Roberts Mattox. Welcome, Rachel. Thank you so much for being here. I know that we've been talking for a while now, and we always get to talk, and we both geek out on branding.
It is my biggest passion, honestly, like brand development, honoring a brand, making sure a brand stays intact as a brand, as it grows and evolves. Like I could talk about it all day long, and we do.
Yes, we do. And before we started the podcast, actually, we both were talking about from the conception of the brand that brand is not just creating a logo.
I can't tell you how many, clients come to me, and I specialize in brand development and go-to-market strategy. So most of my clients are, first-time entrepreneurs, or they are, seasoned entrepreneurs, but maybe they're breaking into beauty for the first time or whatever. And even some that have a beauty experience, but they are building a brand, right? They're building a brand for the first time. And brand identity, logo, color palette, typography, obviously incredibly important. But I definitely have gotten to a point where I won't even talk about that. I won't touch that until we've spent the time doing brand strategy work. And I think brand strategy is one of those things some people get, some people don't get. But at the end of the day, like it is the foundation for everything that you're going to build as a brand. And it is your North Star. You come back to that brand strategy time and time again on the whole go-to-market path. And then once you're in market, it definitely becomes your North Star when you're like, okay, wait, who are we? How do I make sure that we keep this narrative, keep the truth and honesty of our brand, as so many different opportunities are being, thrown at you, and you've got a lot of feedback and a lot of people in the market saying things like, it's so important to come back to this foundation of who are you? Yeah. Why did you start? What is at the core of this brand? How are you different? Who are you for? Like that is brand strategy. And that to me is ultimately what a brand is.
Exactly. But also is who your brand is going to serve. That's very clear that you don't need to serve everyone. In this very competitive world, is so much more important to go very niche and know who your core clients are going to be.
So I love that you're saying this, because I feel like this is one of the biggest pushbacks that a brand might get once they're in the market, from whether it's retail buyers or investors. It almost feels like a push-pull where people think that they believe what you just said. They think, yes, you need to have a very specific target audience. You need to know exactly who you're for, being niche because it's such a crowded space. But then you do that. You build a whole brand around serving this niche. And then you get to market, and a retail buyer or an investor might say, is this a big enough TAM, total addressable market? Is this a big enough audience to serve? Maybe you should go broader. And I can't tell you how many times this has happened. And the founder, rightly so, like kind of goes into a tailspin, like, oh my God, I thought that I was serving this really core customer, but now I'm being told that I need to expand and open and make, broaden the aperture and make this brand for more people. In my experience, from what I've seen, most times that ends up diluting the brand strategy and the brand DNA, and you really lose the plot. You lose the narrative about who you are and who you're for. So
and you lose your uniqueness and what makes you different from the competition.
Exactly.
And I swear I've seen brands, because at the end of the day, this is a business and the product needs to make money. And I've seen those brands that they're authentic and they're honest to their audience, even if it's a smaller audience. I've seen them making a lot more money than many brands that they try to be everywhere and being for everyone.
Totally. And when you say, yes, niche, or it's a small target, or it's a small audience, if you're a small startup brand, there is plenty of customer base out there for you to be successful and to grow. If your unit economics make sense, if your margins make sense, if your production pipeline can scale, like if you're operationally sound, then even if you're serving a niche market, there are enough customers out there for you to grow, get started, grow, scale, and show like a very meaningful proof of concept in the first few years. Strategy might evolve, right? You might launch new products, new ranges, new SKUs, but at the end of the day, it does come back to that core audience, that core why.
Yes.
And honestly, I have so many examples of brands that we've launched that, they were and are so passionate about this core audience, and they got lost. They got lost along the way.
This is, and I think this happens so many times. I call it the whisper. The whisper.
I love that.
I
That's so
love
true.
it. Yes, because it's like everyone likes to talk about marketing because everyone is able to have Instagram in their phone. Suddenly, they know strategy in Instagram. Or it's also looking at your neighbor and that you have that whispering in your ear that is telling you, oh, look at this brand that they launch at the same time that me, but look at they're doing and they're using this platform. So why we don't try to use this platform too? And instead of being, okay, who are we and what platform can we use? Because you don't know your neighbor. You don't know why their grass is greener because maybe they have a better grass. Maybe they have a better gardener. Maybe they have a better, I don't know, better water. They put a different fertilizing. You don't know their situation. Maybe they pay more for their grass. You don't know the situation, but you cannot trying to go and do exactly the same as your neighbor. You need to do your strategy or what works for you.
Well, I think you're also talking about strategy and tactics, right? Like, and this is a tremendous overlap that I think even the best marketers, founders, investors sometimes get, we conflate the two. For me, brand strategy is who are you, why are you, who are you serving, etc. Marketing strategy is, what are the channels that we're on? What's our core messaging? What's our brand narrative? What is our promotional, campaigns and process? But then there's the tactics. And I think what you're talking about is like, what channel, what tools are we using?
Yeah.
What different apps are we using? What are these new bells and whistles that we're going to start up, sort of adding in? And especially with, digital brands on e-commerce with AI, there are so many new tools all the time. So I think, keeping your ear to the grindstone, listening and looking and seeing what's out there, even looking at what your competitors are doing in terms of like performance, like fine, learn. Like there are best practices out there. There's nothing wrong with like pivoting when you realize that there might be a better tool out there or a better tactic. But I think what you're speaking to at the heart of it is, you can't lose your essence in the process of pivots and growth. And I can't tell you how many brands come back. Either they come back after we've launched them several years ago, or they come to us, new, but they're coming because they're like, we've been in the market for 5 years. We had a core, value proposition, we had a core positioning. We sort of lost our way. We need a pivot. We need to get back to our truth and our essence. So, I mean, whether you're just starting or you are at a critical like growth milestone, it always comes back to this. Who are you at your core and at your essence? And it's never been more important because it's never been more saturated.
And it's so true what you're saying about the tactics. I love that you name it like that because but tactics need execution.
Totally.
And the execution, first of all, you need to know that you have the support system to be able to execute. But also in that execution, you need to infuse your brand. The branding needs to be everywhere. And you need to be using the native language of whatever you do, but your brand needs to be infused there. It's the same brand talking.
It's so true. And I feel like this is such an area of passion for me, and I know it is for you too. This beautiful balance between brand marketing and performance marketing. And I think a great brand, whether they're a brand new brand or they're a heritage brand, like they have mastered that balance. They know how to make sure that the truth and the essence of their brand is present and communicated in every touch point, even performance marketing, right? Where it's really about clicks and driving that conversion. I think this is one of the hardest things to do. And it takes pros, it takes a team, it takes agencies like yours to like really understand that dance, because it is like an art and a science to get that right. And I've seen performance marketing go so AWOL,
Yeah.
losing the plot of the brand,
Yeah.
just in the name of more clicks. And I'm like, cool for now, but your brand is going to die in like 5 years.
And that's a goal. To me, performance marketing is only a draw, it's a funnel to get people to really get to know the brand. Really,
Yes.
I don't
That's
see
a great
it.
way to see it. I like that. Yeah.
It's like the only way that I can put ads all day, that of course they need to be branded, but if it's not clear who your brand is, people are not going to convert.
Right.
And people, I mean,
Okay.
there's tons of data here that people are not going to convert the first time they see your product. So the only thing I can try is to funnel them into, nurture them into the brand.
Yes. And then that's where the funnel dynamics comes into play. Again, that's an art and a science, something that you do well. I mean, I've never been a performance marketer. When I had my agency, we did not manage performance marketing. I think it's an incredible gift to be able to really understand the nuance of that and the funnel dynamics. We build, and I've built strategies and then, said, this is what we need to do. And then hired and brought in agencies or execution teams like yours to do the thing. So I know the value and the importance of this, and it is all about really understanding what you're saying. I mean, this first time that a customer sees your ad, don't expect them to buy, right?
No,
This is nurturing the journey. And it's so funny too, because it's visual, it's copy, it's all of it. All
all
of
of
it
it.
matters from a brand perspective, and if there's just a little bit of disconnect for a customer, even if they can't sort of like verbalize, like, why is it off? Something's off. They lose that sort of trust and fascination.
That's, for example, at the DARL, we do a lot of A/B testing to see what performs better. I love A/B testings, but it's so important from the ground up that first of all, I want to clarify something that people don't know. And you mentioned people come back to you after a few years. To fix a brand is a lot harder than to launch a brand.
Thank you. And it's way more expensive for them. And
Yeah.
that is one message that I really do try to communicate early on with brand development. It's like, yes, it is expensive to launch a brand. Make no mistake. Like, you have to have either funding or you have to have deeper pockets to really get a brand off the ground in the right way. But I promise it's cheaper to do it the right way first than to come back 3 years from the launch and fix it. Because you've now lost all the time and money, but you've also lost potential customers.
Yes.
Like, there's so much value and opportunity lost if you rush to market and cut corners than if you just take the time, do the things the right way, make sure that your strategy, your execution plan is airtight, and stay true to your brand, especially in that first year, really staying true to
And
your
when you sign up for a strategy or your branding, this is something you're married to it for a long time. You cannot change your strategy every month or every 3 months. We can change things, tighten, realize, okay, your target audience is narrower here or there. We can optimize things, but you cannot change the way you communicate with your audience, how you talk as a brand. That's
And I think that's
essential.
It's so true, because I say this too to all brands that are launching. Like, it is not, you're not going to flip a switch on launch day and suddenly, you just can't stop the orders from flooding in. I mean, I think even maybe celebrity brands, have a different experience. But I think most brand launches, it is slow, steady growth. If you're lucky, right? It's slow, steady growth. And a great strategy, in my opinion, is slow, steady growth so that you can learn, okay, what's really resonating? What's really clicking? There's going to be pivots that happen in that first 60 days, 90 days, year even. But to your point, you're not changing the strategy. In fact, you're doubling down on your conviction about what you're doing, learning, A/B testing, making slight tweaks and pivots. But you have to like proof test your that conviction, that strategy, right? You have to give it time and making those slight pivots along the way as you learn things from your audience and from buyers.
Absolutely. And I was giving a conference a few weeks ago, and I started talking about the funnel. And these were students that, of course, look at me like we talk about the funnel so many times with all our professors. Okay, but today we're going to talk about something a little different. We're going to talk about the pre-funnel.
Pre-funnel.
Pre-funnel, and I think is like pre-branding. There's a pre-area. Like before you start your branding, you start your funnel, you need to get data. You need to get the information of who is your market.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, especially pre-launch, is, you're using consumer reports, you're using all of your industry insights, all of the industry data. You're not going to know, as we talked about earlier, until you go live and you start seeing who's resonating, who's buying, who's clicking, who's repurchasing. You might have made a lot of great guesses and very educated guesses about who that customer is. You're going to learn who your customer is once you're live, right?
Exactly.
But I think to your point, like the pre-funnel, the research, the market analysis, and what I love to do is create a customer journey, right? A customer journey. How are they first discovering you? What is their journey to purchase? Really mapping that out so that at every touch point, we know as a brand, we have a narrative for them. We're capturing their attention. We're taking them deeper into the brand. I mean, these are just the best things that you can do as a brand, as a marketer, before you go to market, to really arm yourself with the best strategy. And then once you're live, you learn and you pivot.
Yep. And it's all about storytelling and telling who is your product and why your product was created. It's not only about, again, the logo or a pretty picture.
I think I love to think about, like, I was reading something recently, and it was a great book called, I think, The Compass and the Nail, I think is the name of the book. And it was written by the old CMO of Patagonia. And he had this incredible diagram where he spoke about the levels of brand loyalty. And on the outer ring of the brand loyalty, and I don't know all of the rings off the top of my head, but on the outer ring, it's like promotion, right? It's like, how cheap can you get this? These flash sale, like, how are you like promoting it? And the closest ring to the center, which is like your course, like the essence of the brand, is values, like ethics and values. When you are able to connect to your customer at the level of shared values, they will be a customer for life.
Yep.
They will be a customer for life. They are going to come back to you. They are going to follow you. They are going to want to hear what you have to say. And then there's like thought leadership, and there's other layers in there that I think a brand should always be sort of pulling in. But it really is about that essence of, what does your brand stand for, and finding that loyal tribe of people who align with what your brand stands for, because they themselves stand for that.
Yep, I agree 100% with you. I have something a little controversial that I want to discuss with you, because I've been looking to talk with someone about this for a long, long time. Maybe I'm old school.
Okay.
But I've been seeing a lot of controversial that the pillars in marketing are dead, that those are not performing anymore.
I think this is such a great point. So from my process, and I love my process. I think that the process of brand development is so much about that storytelling, and we start sort of like really with the essence, right? But then you have to kind of build out. You build the brand out, right, from its core essence. And the brand pillars are definitely, for me, a really huge part of building that extra ring, right? That ring on the outside of the brand. Everything for me from a storytelling perspective comes back to the pillars.
To
Like
me too. To me
social
too.
media. And I mean, granted, I get today's social media, so much as UGC, so much as influencer, whitelisting, leveraging other content creators. But you can still align all of that with your brand pillars, right?
Yeah,
The brand
everything.
pillars.
I'm such a big fan of the pillars, and I've been getting a lot of pushback lately. And again, maybe because I'm old school, but I think mostly when you do integrated marketing, like I do, if you don't have those pillars, that they're what interconnect everything with everything in the brand.
There's so much nuance that's possible when you start working with pillars, because you do see that it's an ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
No pillar is siloed.
No.
There's a lot of content, a lot of narrative, brand narrative, even promotions that can kind of live within multiple pillars. If you're running a big campaign, everything should ladder up to at least one of your main pillars, right? I mean, I'm surprised that you get pushback, only because I'm like, well, what else would you do? I mean, how do you build a cohesive brand that is cohesive across every single touch point? How do you scale a global brand without having these like anchor points?
Because lately I've been seeing this separation from brand marketing and performance marketing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And
And so performance marketers are like, screw your pillars. We're just gonna
yes,
do what we know works to get clicks. And
exactly. Exactly. And I've been getting a lot of brands, and I've been talking to a lot of people and brand owners that they're just working such in performance and try to get such a performance that they don't care about their brand story or their pillars. And that's how, to me, brands are going to die and being diluted.
I mean, I do agree that you cannot have longevity with a brand if you're not anchored and rooted in your core DNA, right? Your brand
Yeah.
pillars, your vision, your mission, your values, etc.
Hold on. And before you,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
want you to explain to people what are pillars and give them an example
Yeah.
of pillars, just in case we have some newbies out there.
So my process is, I do consider your brand pillars as part of your brand DNA. So brand DNA for me is like your mission, your vision, your values. Then we get into pillars. This is also sort of like overlapping with storytelling architecture, right? What are the narrative pillars? Generally, there's like 4 or 5 that are sort of major themes for your brand that no matter what, you're always talking about what are those pillars. Whether it's a social media post or it's a campaign or you're doing a new product launch and you're talking about, the products, everything that you're saying about the brand, everything that you're ever sharing about the brand is always going to ladder up to one of those pillars. So, and they should range, right? Like it should cover things like the science and the benefits and the innovative ingredients, right? But then on the other side, it should, you should have a pillar that really is more emotional, right? That resonates more emotionally with your customers around, the experience that you might feel, or the sort of the aspirational elements of the brand. You might have a pillar that's all about the brand founder and the founder story and how the brand came to be. So it's like, basically you would never really like talk about anything as a brand that's outside of the pillars.
And to me, that makes things so much easier, because if it's not fitting with the pillar, it's off brand.
It's just off brand. I mean, how do
Exactly.
you know what's on brand or off brand if you don't have these guardrails?
Exactly.
Are we just old school, or are we just like too structured? I don't know. I think that in this day and age, especially with social and with content creator, brands are leveraging influencers and content creators. They're whitelisting. There's so many strategies now where we're leveraging the influence of people outside of our brand to grow
Yeah.
our brand. And it can be challenging, I think, to negotiate, hey, we need you to stay on brand, even though you are your own brand and we like your brand and
Yeah.
we're entrusting you with our brand. So go, you do you and do it in a way that your audience loves and resonates with, but talk about our brand. Well, of course, we're now opening up the floodgates. Like there's so much gray area there for an influencer.
Hold on, let
content
me
creator to go off.
interrupt you there for a second because you open up the discussion of another difficult conversation I want to have here. And it's about influencers. I
Yeah.
have a love-hate relationship with this matter because I feel like having influencers is, I love when brands, big brands, we know Chanel, that they choose one person and that's the face of the brand for so many years. And
Yes.
they're aligning with that person in so many regards. And I've seen brands using so many influencers that they're losing their personality and mixing themselves with the personality of the influencers. I'm a big fan of content creation. That's a completely different story than influencer. Let's make it separate there. So how do you feel about that?
Such a juicy topic. Well, the way that I see the evolution of influencers is like back in the day, maybe like the 90s or early noughts, we were really in the world of celebrity marketing, right? So like a Estee Lauder or whatever would have, Julianne Moore and, I'm making this up, but it would be like, and they'd have a 2 to 3 year contract and they couldn't partner with anybody else. And we just got really like used to seeing like celebrity endorsement in that way. And then it moved to the sort of what the influencer, what we think of as the influencer, where it's sponsored content. There's still that level of endorsement, but they're doing it in their own sort of their way, right? We're partnering with influencers as a brand because we like their brand, and we're saying represent this product through the lens of your brand and talk to your audience, right? I think
But at
that's
the same time, they're
interesting.
not, but at the same time, they're not brand ambassadors.
They're not brand ambassadors. And what's happened, I think, over time is that customers and even the influencers following has turned that off. They say, look, I don't want any more SponCon. I don't trust it. I don't believe that you actually love this product. I think you're getting paid a lot of money to do a post or a reel about this product. So brands are throwing tons of money at these influencers, and there's really no guarantee that they're going to see a return. The influencers are making money hand over fist, but the brand's not. And so this model to me is dead. I
Totally.
think completely on the other side of it. Now we're in the realm of content creation. And what I would like to see more of, and I think is actually coming, is culture creators. Like it's going to be the people who, it's like the next gen influencer, who it's really about art. How are they affecting culture? How are they uniquely viewing and driving and shifting and molding and shaping culture as we know it? And how are they really authentically weaving the brands that they love into their universe? And for a brand to see that, understand that, and create really unique and authentic partnerships that are maybe more like long-term, that are more interesting, where it doesn't feel like you're just hawking a product. I think that's the future of these collaborations. And I think that the word influencer
I
is
have
going
one more for you. To me, right now, because I've been seeing how it's evolving as we do performance marketing, as brand marketing too, I see how important it became the reviews part. Everyone wants to see what other consumers are saying about the brand. So
yeah.
I think for me, a big one is getting videos, reviews, social media proof. I want social proof of regular individuals who are trying the products, but tied down with reviews somehow.
Well, and there's some great platforms. There's some great e-commerce platforms right now. I think, oh my gosh, I hope that this one is it. I think Kale is the name of the platform.
Well, it was Yoppo for reviews, which is fantastic. Or and you have UCG is interconnected. You have Klaviyo also for review.
Yeah, Klaviyo is amazing. But there are these platforms that are emerging where they're saying, look, let's leverage your authentic audience. Like, let's get away from influencers. Let's get away from this like pay to play, SponCon. Let's actually incentivize the brand's actual followers and customers and ordinary people by saying, if you talk about this on your channel, even if you don't, I have 700 followers or something, like nothing, right? But if I talk about this brand that I love to my audience, then I might get a kickback from that brand.
Yep.
These are just like interesting strategies to just leverage your actual customer.
Yep.
And you're kind of like, it's a lot more of a direct way to engage with your true audience without kind of needing to pull in that other layer of influencer and brand collaboration. I think all of it has a place, quite frankly.
Yes.
But this is where strategy comes in. And this is where strategic spending comes in, because you can blow your wad on like one influencer.
When clients come to me, I always talk about something that I call sustainable marketing strategies. That you need to be able to spend only what you can sustain for a long period of time or X period of time. If you're going to be, and this happened to me, and this is a story, I got a client that I didn't know that she won a grant that it only had her to pay me for X months, 3 months.
Okay.
And there was a lot to fix. And in 3 months, you wouldn't even be done with the fixing.
No, I mean, generally not if there's a lot to fix, right?
Yes. And so you really need to be transparent to whoever, and this is something we were discussing today. If you are, you need to be aligned with whoever you choose to work. And there has to be a transparency, two sides.
Yes.
I see so many brands coming to me and showing me reports from previous providers that each report every month is different because they only show the wins. And in this ever revolving and changing ecosystem, it's really important to understand what stopped working because it's changing.
Right.
So we need to understand, so this is not working. And then, okay, we're going to tweak it this way.
I mean, the losses and the things that aren't working are maybe even more valuable than knowing the things that are working. I mean, especially if you're throwing money at tactics that are underperforming. And we have to have sort of this full open kimono relationship with the client both ways.
Yeah.
Where we're like, this is a strategy, this is what we think is going to work. Let's test it. Let's get really granular with our and vigilant on, daily, like tracking. Is it working? What's working? What's not working? And doing a post-mortem on the things that aren't working. Why didn't they work? Was it brand?
Yeah.
Was it messaging? Was it imagery? Was it the promotion? Did we target the wrong audience? Like, if you don't analyze your failures, then you've not learned anything, and that failure is truly a loss. But if you can learn, I sound like like I'm preaching something, but if you can take those losses and learn why did they fail, oh my gosh, like how valuable is that for the next go round?
And also because from the learnings, you learn how to narrow your audience. Because maybe you are not your target too big, or maybe you're learning that the people that you're targeting, these people, but the people that they're converting are this other. So let's look which converts and then tweak it. But
and it's going back to what we're talking about, like strategy and tactics and staying true to your strategy and not I see this happen a lot with early founders. Like you launch a plan, and you have in the market for 30, 60, 90 days, and maybe they're not seeing the results they expected, and they want to abort mission. Well, aborting mission may be the worst thing you could do. This is where the analysis of getting granular, going in and saying what's working, what's not, and understanding why it's not working is the work. And you're not changing your strategy when you get those learnings, but you might be changing tactics, and you might be tweaking some of those little levers. The strategy on a whole may be perfect, but it's the execution and the little tiny details. Like audience targeting is like incredibly important.
Yep.
And that could be the one thing that's kind of throwing it all off, So I think,
and the truth is that we always start guessing who is your target audience. That till you start implementing, you're not gonna know if your target audience it's really the one that is converting. So you need to start broad and identify who is going to be your target audience.
Right. And sort of redraw those maps, right? We segment based on our best guesses, educated guesses, market analysis, etc. But the proof is in the pudding, right? The proof is in who's actually buying and who's repeat buying. And then you start looking at that data over time and you create new segments, new profiles, right? But it's all a learning. I think launching a brand in this way is one of the hardest things because it is educated guesses that are then put in real time. We're road testing them and we're pivoting, right? And I love it. I think it, but I think you have to be really wired for that journey, especially that first year of vigilance and pivots and not getting too attached to anything and just saying what's going to work, what's not. Let's continue to refine. And I don't know any brand, and I've been at this for a really long time. I don't know any brand that hasn't had to go through that process, that learning curve at launch.
And before we go, there is something really, really important that I want to discuss. That as a new brand, this is a slow process. And even if you hire someone who will create the whole strategy like you, or an agency, or like we do too, and then we also execute the strategy, it takes time. Things are not done from one day to the next, because when things are done right, there's a lot of work in each email that you send out. It's a process. It's not that I wish I could do that, but I cannot go strategize, write it, proofread it, design it. Then I be an analyst of the emails and see what times is better, or the SMS. Being also, there's so many regulations now that we need to be compliant. So you cannot send so many texts at the same time. So everything is part of the strategy. So you need to be aware and don't expect to hire anyone. And they say, I wish it happened that in 3 months, you're making so much money that you can scale.
Yeah,
You need to be prepared that it won't happen.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, this is the thing that nobody wants to hear. Certainly people in our position don't want to say. But I have, I say it always at the, throughout the process and as we near launch. And it helps when you start really building the budget, right? And you start really forecasting and you start forecasting, your channel growth and what is your spend in certain channels, et cetera. And you start to really look at those numbers before you launch. I think that is one way to, sort of mitigate that, that first year of, expectations and disappointments around. And I don't mean to say I think it's about setting realistic expectations, because someone's disappointment could be somebody else's celebration if the expectations are set correctly out of the gate. But I think you're so right. We are in the most saturated market, the highest costs of marketing and advertising. No one has really cracked the code really on performance marketing today in 2024, going into 2024. There's so many shifts and changes. And
it's going to be changing more. Like now we're going to be losing the cookies. So we're going to be losing a lot of opportunities for data. So I don't know what Google is going to come with, but we're going to need to rely more in other kind of data. So we're going to be interesting years to come, and always is changing. So you need to be prepared for that.
Well, I love this comes full circle, because with those types of changes, which you're talking about access and visibility to data as marketers and as brand owners, we have to come back to the roots of brand in order to really survive in those first years of launching a brand. You cannot rely solely on data. You never really could, but I think that there was an era, this sort of the D2C unicorn boom, where data was a drug, performance marketing was a drug, and it was really working, right? We're not there anymore. No. And I think that we can and should absolutely leverage data and use data, but you should not nobody should prioritize data over their own intuition, over their own instinct, over the, you know, creative nuance that a great brand builder has. You know, the human element to branding and building a brand and making sure that a brand survives, it is really, it's a human experience. It's not just a technical and a data-driven experience. And I think that we're going to be forced to come back to that in order for a brand to really sort of like make it long-term.
Also going back to the basics, remember that when we're talking about all this ecosystem, not only digital, but now you can do televisions. There are so many ways to go and going traditional, but you need to be very careful. First of all, who you align with. Do you want to have your product everywhere, or just find places that you align and your ideal customer will come? I've seen also brands trying to be everywhere, and because there is a big store name, is very attractive, but maybe it's not the target audience that you want for your product.
It's partnering with the right retailer is a marriage. And it is as vital to the success and the health of your brand as a marriage is to your, I mean, you know, it's like, it can really make or break you. And you do have to be really values aligned, but also like, what is the vision of growth? What is the vision for the customer? Do we really understand the core customer of, you know, that retail shopper and the target audience for the brand? And I think that's another thing a lot of brand founders get lost with in the very beginning if they don't have great guidance, is, you know, they just want to have the prestige of saying they're in a certain retailer without really thinking deeply about, well, is this the right thing for my brand and the target audience that I'm serving with this brand?
And to me, even with a brand or with a personal brand, is all about your reputation.
Yes.
So who you associate with, and it tells you a lot about who you are. So you need to be very careful with those associations.
Are the company we keep, you know?
Exactly.
I mean,
and that's why I love to keep in company with you, Rachel.
Thank you, Lara. This has been so great. I think that the company we keep is, I think, never been truer. And it's true as a brand, it's true in our professional world. And it's just like, you have to make sure you're surrounded by great people from day one in this industry and as you're building your brand. And shout out to the board, right? Because the board is one of the ways that we connected, and just an incredible community of like-minded people.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, thank you so much for being with me here today. This was, I mean, I can keep talking to you for hours, but maybe we should do a run. My coffee got empty, so maybe
we'll do it
another one soon.
We'll do it over coffee when we're together in person next month.
Okay, we'll do that. All right. And to you guys, thank you so much for having coffee with us, and I will see you next week with more coffee number 5.
Thank you.
Find everything you need at laraschmoisman.com or in the episode notes right below. Don't forget to subscribe. It was so good to have you here today. See you next time. Catch you on the flip side. Ciao, ciao.